the agreement or military pact between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan, which was supposed to support to attack on one, it means attack on all of them. And then there were a lot of discussions who's the target of that military pact. And then last night we've seen Yemen attacking again and hitting targets in Saudi Arabia. One of them was in the same refineries in Aramco were attacked. And the other important point was a, sort of ammunition warehouse in Saudi Arabia was attacked again. And this is, I think, in the latest attacks, Yemeni attacks on Saudi Arabia, this is something new. This is the first time they're attacking their ammunition inside Saudi Arabia. And give us your understanding of the military pact between these countries, and then the way that Yemen is trying to insist on its position.
Thank you, Nima. Let's do it one by one. Let me first talk about this joint defense agreement, which was signed on August 7th. Now, you see, there's a press note that has come out from the Pakistan Foreign Office. That needs to be understood. And along with that, the Turkish President Erdogan, he has also written his comments on X, what used to be Twitter, on this agreement. So when you put them together and you also see the sequence of events, how things have unfolded, it becomes very clear what we are talking about. So what we are talking about here in this joint defense agreement are essentially two things, the key things. One, we are talking about collective security and we are talking about collective deterrence. They both need to be understood. Now, collective security is a concept that Iran Foreign Minister Arakchi he had got from Russia and China, which is about the New World Order. Let me explain the date lines also, how this has happened and how this has come about, collective security. So, everybody will remember that this war started on February 28th when the Americans and the Israelis did their attack on Iran. And the first phase continued till April of 8th. And then we know that on the 27th of April, Arakchi, he went to Russia. And there in St. Petersburg, he had an hour and a half discussion with President Putin. He came back, and after that, on the 6th of May, Arakchi went to Beijing and he had an interaction with Wang He. After he came back, we know on the 17th of June, the MOU was signed. And the mediator of the MOU was Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. As far as the Iranians are concerned, they called it Islamabad MOU. In other words, there was something that Arakchi had got from his visits to Russia and China, which the Iranians felt that there was a need for Pakistanis to do a lot of heavy lifting in it. So they called it Islamabad MOU. Of course, as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, certainly they are the mediators, which is why Shehbaz Sharif has signed on the MOU. After that, what we saw on the 23rd of June, President Pezeshkian, he paid a state visit to Pakistan, where in Pakistan he was personally received by President Zardari and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Then after that, once he came back, obviously there were many issues discussed there. But my assessment is what Arakchi had got about the vision of the New World Order from those two great parks, where he had interaction, that was the key thing. Why I say that is that on the 29th of June, Abbas Arakchi publicly for the first time spoke about the new regional security framework. And in this, he mentioned two things. He said that the outside military powers, they should be excluded from the regional security framework. And he said that this framework is about the regional nations and they should create their own framework. In other words, all the regional problems should be sorted out by the regional players themselves. Now, this is precisely the concept of collective security. Now, this security is, when we talk of collective security, it is very different from collective defense. Collective security basically means that your security should not be at the expense of another nation's security. It should be a security where you are looking for relative security and not absolute security. And for that, there is a need for negotiations, that you sit down and you talk. Because the whole idea of collective security is that this has a great chance of bringing peace in the region. And as the press note of Pakistan says very clearly, that this joint defense agreement, this will bring stability in the region and take the region towards prosperity. So collective security gives precedence to development through the concept of collective security for peace, where you talk and you go halfway, both the sides win, which is not the case in collective defense. Collective defense is what the Americans do, collective defense is what we have in the present order, the world order, when collective defense invariably leads to crisis, it leads to conflict. So, this is one part of this joint statement. It is about collective security. In other words, also please recall that in the month of March and April, what we saw is that four countries got together, the Quad nations, as they came to be called, which was Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. And what they were trying to do is crisis management. They were trying to see that all the regional players, if they can be a compromise and they can work things together. So, all this talk that was going on has now become finally, and there's another last point that I want to make, which is equally important. And that is that after Arakchi had announced this, and after the visit of President Pezeshkian to Pakistan, also please recall that on the 13th of July, Field Marshal Asim Munir, he paid a 2-day visit to Turkey, where he had a detailed conversation with the Turkish Prime Minister and the military leadership there. In other words, it was necessary to finally get the Turkey also to get Turkey on board this defense agreement, which in any case was an informal grouping in the sense that it was a Quad. So this needed to be formalized. So the point I'm making is that these three countries have got together and they have created collective security. Now that there is a challenge of collective security, I'll come to that in a while. The second part that you mentioned. The other aspect I said of this agreement is collective deterrence. Now, this collective deterrence is that attack on one will be an attack on all. Now, this basically is, it is pointing towards Israel. Why I say that is because if you see Erdogan's what he has written on his X, he has added something more which is not there in the Pakistani press note. And he has said it is about combating terrorism. Now, the state which is doing terrorism is Israel. And we know, as far as the Israelis are concerned, that top leaders are openly talking about that more than Iran, the threat is from Turkey. So, when we talk of collective deterrence, it basically means that this is meant to deter Israel. That look, you are not against one, you are against three countries and they bring their own strengths. So these are the two key things. Now, one question that everybody may want to ask is that does it mean here that if there is a war between Turkey and Israel, Pakistan also will come in, Saudis will also come in, because this is what it talks about? Well, you see, the point is it is about collective deterrence. Whether whether Turkey wants Pakistan, then Turkey will decide that. As far as the agreement is there, the formal agreement has been done. And this is basically meant to deter the outside powers. As far as America is concerned, America will leave West Asia, but this is a different subject we can discuss. So the problem here in the region is with Israel. So these are the two key things that needs to be understood of this note. Now, as an example of collective security, is what you just mentioned, that the Saudis and the Yemenis or the Houthis, they are having a problem. The problem is not new, it is some 12 years old, and this whole thing has been started now by the Saudis. And even now, what the Yemenis are saying is that they have breached our airspace in the Sada and Haja, their provinces. And this is a retaliation to that, what they have done. Now, what this means here is that the Pakistanis, perhaps because Pakistanis have an individual defense agreement also with the Saudis that they did in 2025, they will need to mediate between the two sides. Collective security is about mediation, it is not about going to war. It is about going to war with the outside countries. It is not about the region. So what will be required is that the somebody has to put sense in the Saudis that look, it is about time the new world order and a new security framework in the region is taking shape at a very fast pace. So understand the new dynamics which Arakchi has already spelled out, and as a consequence of which this has happened, the joint defense agreement has happened, and wake up to the reality and sit down and finally talk with the Yemenis, because as far as military power is concerned, we know that today they are very strong. And already they have done a lot of damage on the Saudis. Today, Saudis are not in a position at all to even export any oil. Everything is shut down for them. So they are in big trouble because, I mean, they also, all these kingdoms, they need money. Where will that money come from? So, in my assessment, Nima, this is very broadly, if you take all the logical steps, this is what it is about, and this is my interpretation. And this is the concept which people in the West do not understand, the collective security. And let me give you a bit of a background where it comes from. Now, see, what had happened was, we know in November 2012, Xi Jinping, he came to power in China. His first foreign visit was to Russia, and that visit happened in March of 2013, where he met up with President Putin. And after that, on the 23rd of March 2013, he gave a talk at the Moscow Institute of International Relations. So, surely what he had discussed with Putin is what he spoke at that institute. And the most important thing was that he spoke about the new type of international relations. So, this is the vision in the multipolar world where we have three great powers now: America, China, and Russia, two great powers. It was in 2013 that they decided this vision. And the three key things of the vision are: one is the concept of collective security, that we need to resolve our security issues through talks and negotiations and through a win win formula where both the sides are willing to compromise a bit, where the security should not be at the cost of another country's security. The second point in this was sovereign equality. Now, what this means is that any country, small or big, can decide its own development path, can decide its own foreign policy. In practical terms, what it means is that there are a lot of Indians who are worried that what will happen after this defense agreement has been signed about our relations with Saudi Arabia. They will not be impacted at all, because in this vision you can decide who you want to do trade with, because this vision has an entirely different motive of creating a security architecture where all the regional countries, they sort out and talk their problems. And the third was that everything should be under the United Nations rules. international rules under the United Nations. And this point has been highlighted by President Erdogan in his ex post that he has put out, in addition to what I said, the press note that has been issued by the Pakistan Foreign Office. He has mentioned that. So the point that I am making is this is a thinking where Pakistan is will be playing a very big role, and this is the reason that the Iranians decided to call their MOU the Islamabad MOU. So what is happening in a nutshell is the thinking has come of the new world order. That thinking has come. Iran is the country which has already won the war. Let there be no doubt, the war was won on the 8th of April. After that, the attacks that the Americans have been doing is they are trying to see if the same thing, you see, where they have already lost, you can keep doing the thing again and again, it will not give you different results. So, as far as they are concerned, they are lost. And the evidence of this is that the Iranians have become very strict now concerning the Strait of Hormuz and the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And alongside, the Iranian Arakchi has unfolded this. So, as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, they are doing the heavy lifting here. And the Pakistanis, we have already seen that not only have they, the Kuwaitis have gone with the Pakistanis and signed a defense agreement. It was actually signed in 2023, but they have ratified that now. Similar to what the Pakistanis have done with Saudis. Not only that, the Pakistanis today have also entered the African continent, where a similar defense agreement has been signed with Somalia. So the point is that Pakistanis have full backing of the Chinese and the Russians to take this idea of defense cooperation, and through this, the idea of collective security to maximum countries, and especially the Muslim countries. The emphasis is on Muslim solidarity. And this is the first thing that this Makkah summit for joint defense agreement also mentions. So the Pakistanis will be doing all this, their geopolitical profile goes up, and as far as West Asia is concerned, this becomes the first region to test this agreement. That is, in my assessment, what it is about.
Yeah. You've mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, which is the center of the conflict right now for the United States and Iran. And Wall Street Journal reported, a on Donald Trump and his position and his understanding about that. He says that the article says that Donald Trump has been preparing to declare victory in the war, in the Iran war, for weeks if Tehran fully reopens the Strait of Hormuz. And he privately telling his senior advisors that if that happens, he's going to declare victory. He's going to get out of the region. But the problem is that Iran is not going to open up the Strait of Hormuz the way that the things are happening right now. Yesterday we had the Iranian national, you know, Supreme National Security, Council coming out with a declaration talking about each and every point they're considering right now for reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. They're basically right now they're talking about all fronts: Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, and Iraq. It's a comprehensive sort of understanding on the part of Iran. And it says the United States, you want to resolve the issue, you have to consider all these fronts together. We are not separated. We are all together. And not only that, with the frozen assets, with the sanctions, all of that, I think that's going to be part of Iranian leverage as time goes by in a long run to put pressure on each and every country that is putting pressure due to these sanctions on Iranian people. That's in my opinion. But the short-term sort of a strategy is going to be what would happen in the near future. We know that Iran and Oman are talking about the new mechanism in the Strait of Hormuz. It seems that they're getting somewhere positive. They're getting somewhere that they can agree on something with the new mechanism in this strait. How do you see the way that Donald Trump sees this situation in the Strait of Hormuz and the Iranian Sea, it seems the totally different scenarios there.
So, Nima, excellent. What you have said is perfectly fine. Let me respond in two parts. The first part is, if you see the MOU that was signed on the 17th of June, today is already what, 9th of June. We are very close to the 17th of June, and there are certain things in the MOU which say very clearly have to be accomplished in 30 days, the first 30 days. So when I was comparing that with most of the demands that the Iranians now have put on the Strait of Hormuz, they match. So what the Iranians are saying is that, first of all, in my opinion, the most important thing is that the US forces should be out of the region. This is what they are asking for. Then they are asking for the lifting of the naval blockade. Then they are asking for the sanctions on them so that they are able to sell their oil, their gas, their petrochemicals. Then they are asking for the release of their frozen assets, all those demands which are there. And they are asking for, in Article 1, which is there of the MOU, that there should be permanent peace with all the allies. All that they are now doing is spelling out all the allies as well, as you pointed out. So they say that, and they are even gone to the extent of saying that even war reparations have to be paid. So the point I'm making is that, as far as Iran is concerned, Iran is in total control of Strait of Hormuz, and because the management of this has to be done along with the Omanis, so that is what they are trying to sort out, and a lot of options are being discussed. One option that, all right, the every vessel should go through the Iranian side, none through the Omani side. Then another option being discussed is, let's open a new path, the middle course, demine that, and let's the things go from there. Then also talks are going on what sort of fees they'll take, whether it will be 7% and then 20% on vessels which sort of don't obey or go by the rules that the Iranians or the management, Persian Gulf State Authority, has set up. But I would say that yes, Iranians now have become very firm about what they want before they open the Strait of Hormuz. But the final word, I suppose, should come, in my opinion, from President Pezeshkian, because he heads the Supreme National Security Council. So he's the man who will be in touch with the Supreme Leader, Mustafa Khamenei. And after that, the final word, what it will be, will come out. So all that is certain. Now, it is certain this is the way it will happen. So it is not opening in a hurry at all. Now, as far as what Trump is saying, you see, Trump can say something, but the key thing that has been said is by Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent has gone and said that, look, we will make Strait of Hormuz in 2 to 3 years irrelevant, because something like 50 to 70% of the oil now, the energy from the Gulf countries, they will go through underground pipelines. See, this is all fantasy. It means nothing at all. You see, because I can give you so many reasons why it will not work. You see, but this is something that they are thinking. They are sort of telling everybody that, look, the petrodollars will still remain. The big worry, as far as the Americans are concerned, is petrodollars, because as far as the bases are concerned, a lot of commentators I have heard, they are even saying that what is in a base, of course, all the infrastructure that they have moved from there, the Americans, it is expensive, but again, it can be built again. What is the big deal in that? No, it can't. Why it can't be built is because all these countries from where the infrastructure has gone, the troops have gone. For example, the regional headquarters of CENTCOM, which was in Qatar, it first moved to Jordan, and now it is in Israel. So all these countries will not allow the Americans to rebuild on their territory, because it does not provide them security, it provides them vulnerability. And this is the reason that this joint defense agreement, I see the possibility of more and more countries joining it. Kuwait will join this, Qatar will join this. See, Egypt will not be able to join it because Egypt has a problem. And the problem that Egypt has is, if you see the Camp David Accord of 1979 that the Egyptians have signed with Israelis, then there is a clause that Israel cannot be in an agreement which is against Israel. So they have a technical problem. How they can surmount that technical problem needs to be seen, because after all, Egypt also was part of that original informal grouping Quad, which I mentioned was very active, and a lot of American commentators were saying that, look, this is a military pact. The problem here is, Nima, that the American commentators, the commentators from the Western countries, they are totally unaware of this new world order vision. Because of their arrogance, because of their hubris, they have not bothered to know what is actually going on between China and Russia. And now they are coming to their senses after things are happening in West Asia. And what Iran has done, consulted them, and Iran has become a very important pillar. So all these countries, the Gulf countries, see, they will not have the Americans come back and rebuild the bases. In my opinion, that game is over. So whether they like or they don't like, they'll have to join this regional security framework. They'll have to understand that, look, this will bring peace, and each country can go about their work as usual, as business. This is what they need to understand. And as far as Hormuz is concerned, Iran will make sure that unless all the conditions are met, they will not open it. So this is the end of petrodollars. So if the petrodollars are not coming, we all understand what it means. And we all understand that the vacating of the American bases, the implication it will have on those other 780 bases that the Americans have in 80 countries across the globe. So Iran is that country which has brought about a sharp decline of the American empire. This is the reality, and there's no going back from here. The UAE, UAE feels they can go back. We have signed an Abraham Accord with Israel. Israelis themselves understand what is going on. And this is the reason that the Israelis, they put pressure in Washington on the US Congress. And we saw that in the House when the Pentagon budget for 2027 was discussed, and Pete Hegseth was talking there and asking for $1.15 trillion for 2027. They had that clause which clearly said that the U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence agency, they should merge with the IDF, basically for West Asia. So as far as the Israelis are concerned, they will not end their war. And this is the reason that they want now that the CENTCOM headquarters and the CIA, they should come directly under the Israeli Prime Minister. But this will not work. So, but this is another story. So the Nima long and short is, what has happened is this joint defense agreement, this formalization is an extremely positive step. It takes forward the thinking of the new world order through Iran, through Arakchi, who has done a fantastic job as a diplomat, and by a lot of heavy lifting, which is now being done by Pakistan.